The all-American half pound, 2 pure beef patties, lettuce, tomato.
Singles going steady.
This is Singles Going Steady, the podcast dedicated to exploring great singles with a particular eye to the punk, new wave, and DIY eras of the last century. I'm Steve McGowan.
And I'm Adrienne and Meddock. And we're in a band, the Beef People, who released a single in 1986 on our own label, Zub Records. But we're record collectors, and we're passionate especially about the expression of pop music perfection that is the single recording. Exploring the mystery of what makes for a great single is what propelled us to begin this podcast. So who we going steady with this week?
This is episode 019, and we are going to listen to an epical single by the band from Los Angeles, Southern California, Black Flag, their very first single called Nervous Breakdown. This is a big deal for me personally. Black Flag, kind of the torchbearer for the American hardcore movement. The sound that was just, buzzsaw guitars, screaming vocals, stomp it out with short songs. This is the very early version of Black Flag. And when I say it was influential for me personally, when I was learning to play the guitar, I was definitely influenced by the Ramones, like most punk rockers, but the band that I really sat down and listened to their records and I figured out how to play their songs was Black Flag. Black Flag and REM, of course, as you do.
Oh, yeah.
Two things that go great together.
So clear.
Yes. So that's how I learned how to play guitar.
It's like pickles and ice cream.
In the Elvis Costello songbook. But Black Flag was how I learned to play punk rock and bar chords. And it really made a big difference in my life.
And you were said this is an early version of the band.
Yes,
I think this is one that like a lot of the younger folk might not be aware of because this is pre-Henry, right?
Pre-Henry Rollins, yes. The band's singer is Keith Morris, the original singer, who would go on to be in the Circle Jerks, Greg Ginn on guitar, and Chuck Dukowski on bass, and whoever they had on drums. They were always going through drummers. We can sympathize with that.
Yeah.
And this is the first release on SST Records, their label. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's just listen to this. This is a true slice of just undistilled punk hardcore.
American hardcore.
Yes, American hardcore that doesn't have any British
There's
stuff.
no accent here.
Yeah, no, not at all. Black Flag, Nervous Breakdown, 1978 on SST Records. Here we go.
And on my shoulders
So there you go. That's just a blast of pure aggression from Black Flag, as they were wont to do. It's a very testosterone-based sort of punk. It's a guy thing. There's no doubt about that.
And it's an American guy thing.
Yeah.
I think even though you've got commonality with the
Yes.
stuff we see coming out of England, and, pistols and buzzcocks, they do not sound the same.
No, not at all. It's just so buzzsaw and so gnarly. Gnarly, dude. This is on SST Records, which was Greg Ginn, the guitar player's label. He formed his own label, and this is SST 001. It's the first release. They would later go on to release a lot of just amazing records, amazing bands. They put out the Minutemen, who we'll talk about probably in our next podcast, and they put out the Meat Puppets. They put out Husker Du, just lots and lots of bands.
And a little later on, expanded sort of what their brief was as far
Right.
as musical sounds.
Yes, I mean, even our friend Glenn Phillips had a record on SST.
Oh yeah, I've forgotten that.
Yes, and didn't you have a legal thing going on with the...
Yeah, I actually, it's everybody who was in a band in the early 80s dream to be, to get a mention in Cream magazine. And when I did, it was to give an opinion on the contract between Negative Land and SST. You may be familiar with the
Negative Land.
Negative Land, the sound collage artists.
The letter U and the numeral 2.
The letter U and the numeral 2, which sampled from Casey Kasem and U2. And I had a sort of a professional interest in sampling that spanned my day job interests. And I had the great unfinished article on Negative Land and their conflict with both U2 and their own label SST. Coming out of the sampling issues surrounding that record. So I'm quoted in Cream magazine in 1994.
Boy,
about
howdy.
that, not like, Meddock's bass playing is adequate or her vocals could use some improvement, nothing like that.
Just the legal stuff.
Yeah, just a quote.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was in Cream magazine.
Boy, howdy. Black Flag, just an amazing band. This is just the beginning of a lot of really great stuff they put out. Just angry, pissed off, to the wall punk, buzzsaw guitars. There's just a lot of screaming. It's just, you want to break stuff when you hear it. And
it's not that women can't do those things as well, but when we were talking about what records we were selecting, I was kind of like, this is definitely a Steve thing.
Yeah.
I think the way it is done in a way that is not not necessarily done with an eye towards inclusion of all peoples.
Of course, later on there would be a female bass player in Black Flag, but the version that when I first saw them, it was much later on the My War tour, and they were a lot different of a band then, with Henry singing and Kira on bass, and they were doing a lot more long, jammed out things, and it wasn't the concise punk like it is now. But I did have the good fortune to see the band Flag about a year ago in Asheville, and that's basically the original Black Flag without Greg Ginn. Greg Morris, Chuck Dukowski, Steven from the Descendants playing the guitar, and Bill Stevenson on drums. And they did all the early stuff, all the stuff on this record, and all the stuff on the first couple of EPs. And it was just stunningly good. Even though those guys are getting a little long in the tooth, they came in and they killed.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing. They have it under their belts, and they really put on a great show. And it was well attended, well done, and just rocked. Just rocked. It was a good thing. Another thing about SST Records are the crazy-ass covers. They're done by the artist Raymond Pettibon, who's actually Greg Ginn's brother, and he's a pretty famous artist now, but he started doing Black Flag and SST band flyers, and he's done most of the covers for SST Records. This one has kind of a disturbing scene of a guy threatening another guy with a chair. It definitely fits the nervous breakdown motif. And if you're into sort of weird, almost outsider art, you'd like Pettibon. He invented the flag logo with the bars. It's great music. It's very much of its time. Nobody was doing anything like Black Flag.
And I think maybe it grows out of surf music and
like Stooges and
and
MC5.
that's sort of its DNA.
Yeah.
Is very American.
Very American, yes. And just you can feel the boredom and the hopelessness a little bit. Of course, Black Flag would launch a million crappy hardcore bands. There really weren't that many good American hardcore bands. You got your DC bands and the Dead Kennedys, who were kind of a different thing, and a few other bands that were good. But Flag were definitely the torchbearers, and they were smart enough to move on, change, some for the good, some for the better. Damaged is an amazing record. Got anything else you want to say about this one?
No.
Okay.
Do you have anybody you'd want to hear cover?
This would be a tough one to cover. The early Beef people, the 5-man Beef people used to play this pretty regularly, and Russ sang it, and it was always fun and sloppy and.
I can say what I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear one of those singers on YouTube with their guitar and their vocal I'm about, playing strumming the can giving us an emo version of Nervous Breakdown. I do not want to hear that. You can keep it.
No, you can keep that one at home. You're right. So, my recommendation for this week is the Keith Morris book that just came out about a year ago. It's called My Damage. It's pretty well written. Keith is not he's not a genius or anything. He's just seems like a regular guy. He was doing what he was doing. He was singing in a hardcore band and smoking weed and just doing his thing. And it's an interesting story. He has a lot of troubles later on. He gets diabetes, and things are looking rough for him. But they come back out. The new band that he's in now is called Off, and they're very, very much like the early Black Flag. And that's kind of my second add-on recommendation to the Keith Morris book. If you're interested in Black Flag, you should read the Keith Morris book. And if you like Black Flag, you should get all the Off EPs. I think they've just released EPs. You can get them all on one compact disc, I think. And it's just basically the same thing. It's short, sharp, minute-and-a-half songs, blasts of aggression, and just make you want to just bounce off the walls. Do you have a recommendation?
Yes, and I'm afraid mine is in the Heloisian mold, because I'm inspired by both Off and Black Flag to give you one that's a pest control recommendation, which is the weird old-timey ant eradicator called Taro. And Taro is this...
You spell that?
Terro. Taro is... it comes in many forms, but the best form to get is this little vial of this sticky gel that you squeeze out on these weird little cardboard pieces that you tear off from the box that the bottle comes in, and ants just go to that like moths to the flame. It's ants to the taro.
Do they stick to it?
No, they eat it, and then they go home and they fall asleep, and they don't get up.
They go to the ant farm.
They do, the ant farm in the sky.
Play with the other ants all day long.
They do, and it's...
Will this work on boyfriends as well?
I have not tried it, but it's boric acid, so I don't think it will, except if your boyfriend is an ant or a queen ant. That could work. but it's not harmful to pets or the environment.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's boric acid,
Okay.
so that doesn't it works on the shell. So I guess it's pretty gruesome for the ants, perhaps. But
Yes.
I like to think they go to sleep or they go off to the farm.
That's very well put. Be nice to your ants is what we're saying here on Singles Going Steady. And that was 019, Black Flag, Nervous Breakdown, 1978, SST Records 001, the big blast of American hardcore. We love it. Check it out. And we will talk to you next time.
Next time.
To learn more about the artists and recordings we just talked about, visit our website at zubrecords.com. And click on the Singles Going Steady icon.
You'll also find links to the persons, places, and things we recommend, and much more.
You can find episodes of Singles Going Steady on our website or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Singles Going Steady is brought to you by the power and majesty of Zub Records. Zub Records. Smart sounds for sharp people.